Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, throughout the years, we focus on many historical events, and today we're focusing on not just one event, but many things coming up in our community. Joining me is Brad Belk, our community historian. Thank you for being here today, Brad.
Well, it's always a pleasure and great seeing you.
I know we've talked about different events over the years, different projects, and when you look at this next decade or 5 years, you have a lot planned.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening. People hear a lot about history.
If you like history, you need to just be ready, because this is going to be an exciting time. If I can see that first slide.
So we have some slides today, some PowerPoint slides that kind of take us through, because there's a lot that I think the community would like to know about and what's happening.
Right.
So we can look at what's happening. So actually, you have a group that's been formed to help plan for the future.
Yes, we formed a celebration commission. Yes, and with the idea with that, I guess there it is right there, and that's best because there's a lot of dates and numbers there. But we're primarily looking at these 4 events, and next year we'll be celebrating Missouri's bicentennial, and then in 23, 2 years after that, we'll be celebrating Joplin's 150, and we're going to throw out all the stops. We're going to have really a great time with that, and that's primarily what this commission is doing. But we're also cognizant of these other great events too. And then in 3 years, we'll have America will be celebrating its 250th on July 4th, and I'm sure that will be a memorable occasion. And then Route 66 also happens in 26, and I find that really fascinating. You know, that's that storied road that goes through Carthage and Carterville and Webb City and Joplin and Galena and Riverton and Baxter Springs. So that'll be a fun event as well, as we can see.
A lot of history happening in the calendars and what's coming up. So this commission has been formed to help plan
this. It has. But what I want to talk about is next year. Of course, this is middle of November. We're going to be in 2021, and I know we're all looking forward to that anyway. But there's going to be some exciting things that are going to be happening next year, and I just want to give everybody a heads up on that. One major event includes the return of Joplin native Charles McPherson, and Charles is a well-known alto saxophonist, and he'll be in Joplin next year in July to do multiple performances. And one of his appearances will be on Saturday, July 24th, 2021, obviously, at the Central Christian Center, which is downtown. And this will be a very special day for Joplin, but also for Mr. McPherson. He'll be celebrating his 82nd birthday with us, which isn't that exciting? And then next year, we will also celebrate the plotting of Joplin and Murfreesburg. And those events will happen in about a 2-month period. 1870, we find the big chunk of lead and zinc, lead and zinc down at Landreth Park. And then we move to the founding of the 2 communities, and that happens with the plotting in July of Joplin and in Murfreesburg in September. So then, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you.
Go on to some slides, kind of show us tying all this together today, so let the viewers see a little bit what we're talking about.
Okay, yes, and we'll keep that slide up just till I'm done, please. Thank you. Earlier in this year, on March 23rd, 2021, what a perfect celebration. Dr. Chad Stebbins, who will be on your program and just following me, has done a masterful work of telling the history of this iconic structure of the Connor Hotel. You know, everybody wonders, if those walls could talk, all right? Well, if he's got the voice. He is telling these remarkable stories. It's a must-read, and he has graciously agreed to premiere it on Joplin's March 23rd birthday in 2021. So we're so very pleased with that, and you need to keep an eye out for that. The photographs are great, and the stories are just fascinating.
And when people think of Joplin history, that's one of the iconic symbols that people have thought for years.
And then also what we're doing during the commission is Chad is also a part of this celebration commission with me, and he and I and several others are working on these kiosks, and they're going to be covering Joplin's early days. They're going to be located along Landreth Park, along the trail there, and we call it the Discovery Trail. But they're going to give us updates of how our community sort of started and some of the people that came before us, settlers and Native Americans and that type of thing. And with that, we're hoping also that we'll have an aspect of more of an interactive feature. And right now, it's still a little bit abstract, and I'm the last one to come up with any kind of modern world, but it is out there, and we're addressing that, and we're hoping that will make an attraction that will make history more fun, which is what we're after.
So kind of an interactive opportunity for people.
Right, right, exactly. And then the commissioners, another group, have been planting irises, and in fact, we planted some out at the mansion here at Missouri Southern, and those in 1930s, the iris was declared the city flower. And so there's a group of very passionate ladies and gentlemen as well, and they want to revive that. And so we're planning now, and then hopefully by 2023 we'll have this beautiful tapestry of irises, and it'll just be
So getting
grand to
throughout
see.
the community at different
Yes,
locations.
yes. And so if anybody's interested in that, you know, I don't know, you don't want to talk to me, but somebody on the commission, they will help you out, and it'll just be really a fun thing. And it gets back to harkens to our history and our past. But what I came to talk about today, and I can have the first slide there.
On to the next slide for
Yeah,
that?
is
Okay.
and I'm just ordering people around. Thank you, Maddie, for all the help. Is the project that's really been consuming for many of us, and those are the ones that are restoring these incredible structures on Sargent, 4th and Sargent, and that would be the Edward Zelliken House, the Charles Schifferdecker House, the carriage house for Charles Schifferdecker, as well as the garage, which was one of the first car garages, which is quite fascinating in Zelliken. Next slide, please. Thank you.
So these are homes that are part of Joplin's early days.
Right,
history.
right. And so it's been, needless to say, challenging, okay, in many respects. And we've had to problem solve, which has been fascinating. And I could not do this without the incredible group of people we have, the remarkable architect Michael Griffin, and then obviously the generous funds of Humphreys are allowing us to do this. But what you're seeing right now is primary fire damage, a horrific fire in 1991, which nearly destroyed the entire property, took the roof out, and unfortunately killed Bill and Gertrude Freeman, who were at the house at the time. And what we've been dealing with are those issues of the fire. We're dealing with issues of age, and we're also dealing with issues of previous owners that sort of sometimes fixed the problem and sometimes made it worse. But that's the way it is with the house, and that's part of the story as well. But you can see the incredible damage there from the fire and the walls that had to be rebuilt.
So this is where the timbers were burned, but they were left there. And
Yes,
things like
yeah,
that. Right.
yeah, exactly. And of course, these are 3 bricks thick, and the issue was, you know, what we want to try to do is to be as authentic as we can be. So where in the world are we going to find 1890s bricks? Well, we went to St. Louis, and there's a couple of salvage yards up there that have buildings that have been raised from the 1890s. For those that don't know, St. Louis was a brick giant in its day. And so though they're not, you know, from our area with the Schifferdecker, but they fit in quite marvelously with this 1890s flavor. Next slide, please. And then you see the tower on the far left, be on your far left, I believe, on your TV screen, as they say. That's the tower. And of course, it just got nearly burnt up. It was charred beyond belief. And when that fire hit in there, it just went right up.
So it just shot up
just like a chimney. And so what we're dealing with on the far down center and far right second level, you see these beams. These beams are put in there to secure and lock in the walls. The walls were fading and falling away from the house. And we're doing the same thing with the tower, which we've got to bend the wood, which is a fascinating thing in itself. But what we're doing now is we've secured the walls, we've locked them in, so they're no longer bowing out.
So structurally making it sound.
Right, and that fire, Judy, was just, it's just, and you know, obviously the ultimate price was were 2 lives, but the house took a terrible beating as well. And then on the far left corner there, down below, are some wood products that we've been using. So we've been finding Douglas fir that's 150, 200 years old.
Wow.
So we're getting back to this, the time frame of this
What they
stuff.
would have used.
And there's another group of companies out there that have that product too. What you wind up finding out is that there's just gobs of people out there that are into this restoration, and they have these little pockets of gold that we are after. And some of it really is as expensive as gold. But nonetheless, the limestone work there. We had one of the window that they're working on the top there.
Right.
What's fascinating is the homes have other lives, and a previous life it was a funeral home. Wow, that's pretty crazy, isn't it? Hurlbut Funeral House, and they the one that they're working on the ledge there, the limestone part. They had to bring the caskets in. They did their work down in the basement, and they brought it in through the side, and so they took out a window and put a door in there. Well, obviously, we're rechanging that.
You want it going back to what it was like
Exactly,
before, right.
exactly. And so that's another one of those things where I was referring to the previous owners sort of modify.
It went through many eras.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Next slide, please. And of course, there's some amazing craftsmanship. The stained glass windows. That window on the top there is in the Zelliken house, and it's right there on the landing of the stairs, which is just elegant and beautiful. And you're seeing that sandstone work that we're doing there. That's very you have to be very, very precise and creative to do this. We've got a great artist working on that, and so you're seeing it basically being rebuilt. The bad thing about sandstone is that Joplin weather is not friendly to that, and so what happens is the atmosphere basically takes it down, and so it's not the best building material for us. But nonetheless, that's another aspect that we had to address. Next one, please. And then we're going to be doing a lot of intricate floors, and those are some examples that we have that we really like. And then up above, it's just a funny thing about history. You never know where you're going to find it.
Right, it's like a treasure hunt, probably.
Yeah, oh yeah, no doubt about it. And see, those doors were at Del Rio, and those are our original doors that went into the...
So they're from the house.
Yes, from the house, yes. That were, they didn't, in the dark of night, come and steal those. They purchased them at some point in time, and they installed them, which was a fun feature.
Right.
So what we did was the middle one, we rebuilt them with similar materials, and then you see on the far right, they're taking them out, and we now have the doors back.
So you kind of traded doors with
yeah, and we didn't know we were going to be doing something like that, which is kind of fun too. And with that now they've got doors, and we've got the original doors,
right.
And we'll be putting them in, and they will look elegantly and great in our dining room. Next slide, please. And then one of the things that Michael Griffin and I, the architect, have done, and we've been very fortunate to be able to do, we've traveled to other historic house sites, some of the best in the United States. And so, I've been in the museum field for a long time. And anyway, the best way to get ideas is to steal them. And, go out there and
borrow somebody's ideas.
Yeah, I guess that's not good in the museum business. That was a wrong term there. But the point is that really that you need to explore other successful operations. You find out how they run their operations,
right.
And then you see how they deck things out. I love the one on the right. It's Christmas time, and one of the things we've got a lot of events planned when we open up, but one thing's going to be a big time Victorian Christmas, which will hopefully really arouse the community. Next slide, please. And there we have for those that aren't familiar what the house looks like, there's the Schifferdecker house there on the left there, and the Zelliken house on the second floor, second slide down below left too. You see the roof was completely rebuilt on the right-hand side for the Schifferdecker house, and we used a lot of that Douglas fir. And we had to rebuild. They put a kind of a makeshift roof on it that was too large for it, and it was pushing the tower out. And we got to bring the tower back in and to connect. There's something about this square and around doesn't always interact well.
Quite right.
They don't play well together. Yeah. Next slide, please. And so then you see some more deterioration, and some restoration work as well. But if we look on the far right-hand column there, you'll see some work we've done. This was basically almost a 6 to 8 month year project. Was the underpinning. The Schifferdecker house was sinking, and on several locations. And so what we did is we went underneath and we underpinned it. So we basically put it on a big kind of concrete block to stabilize
solid foundation, right.
Right. So also what was advantageous at that time is that we took care of the drainage problem with the basement. What we want in a museum, obviously, from the bottom, from the basement floor to all the way to the top of the house, we want to control the environment because we got items on display. Yeah, and so we're really kind of crazy about controlling our environment, and rightly so. And so while we were kind of doing all this stuff, we said, let's just do that. The thing on the sort of the second one, right-hand side, the front stairs when you come in wasn't setting on anything solid. Well, everybody's going to be coming through.
A lot of weight and traffic.
And that's not a good thing. So we have to address these things. It's been a lot of fun. It's been challenging, and couldn't do it without my great team. Next slide, please.
You mentioned the team. There are definitely a lot of people involved.
Oh, there sure are. And, these craftsmen are really, really good. They're specialized in what they do. And we couldn't do it without them. The story is going to be the architect, the Humphreys, and these and marvelous men that are very skilled. We'll have some ladies working, too, as we move on the inside. Yes, next slide, please.
So we're seeing the work in the Zelikin house here. So
Right.
you have two projects basically, or more than two simultaneously.
Well, we're working on
occurring.
four structures,
Four
at
structures
the same time. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So-
and that's kind of challenging, but we might as well do all that.
Right.
Next slide,
That's
please. Okay, and that's the one. That's the big one, minus the ones that I'm in there. But the rest of the people, that is really the story of our project. We could not do that. We all know that with our team, how we get where we are, and we're progressing well. We almost all the slate has been put on all the roofs, so we've got that checked off the list, and we're trying to do all the exterior work in 2020, and by 2021. Finishing all of it out in January, no later than February.
Right.
And then we'll really start concentrating our energies on the interior.
So people will see the outside finished look before you have the
Right,
inside
right.
finished.
And if we go back, you said there was some other slides.
Well, we
that
have
you-
some black and white pictures. I think that if we, people tell us a little bit about the history. Some of our viewers may not be familiar.
Right. Okay.
We're talking
Well,
about
and
the original homes
so,
here.
Well, here's what I love about this. Okay, Judy, that picture right there is fascinating because if you would have looked at the house 2 years ago, you would have never saw that white mortar in there. That's one of the very first pictures of the Schifferdecker house that we have, which is just absolutely fabulous because, these photographs are just priceless, and they've helped us immensely in our restoration.
So they provide those details.
Those details, yes. And so what happened was the previous owners had put some sort of paint and stain and all kinds of stuff, whatever, and it was all a red canvas. Well, the people that have lived there in the neighborhood now for 30 or 40 years are going, what are you doing here? Well, we're going back to the original
So
way it
originally
looked.
it had that white
It
look.
had that white mortar. So then we brought in a specialist that could tell us the elements of the mortar as well as the brick. And so we tried to mimic that as well. So yes, now back to your original question, which is usually where I'm going, rambling around. The Charles Schifferdecker is an amazing American story, came across the pond without a cent in his pocket, and obviously built a castle or mansion at the day. He got his business. Well, we already switched. We're still Schifferdecker House.
Right.
Yes, and he started in the bottling, beer, ice business, and then bought land and got in the mining business and then the banking business. And life was very good to him, but it wasn't because he didn't work hard for it. And so he's one of those American dreams.
Success stories.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And so he was able to then settle here in Joplin and build these.
Yeah, and we're so pleased that he did because he also did a lot for our community.
Right, his name's all over town, too.
He gave a park, Schifferdecker Park, and of course, I think one of the fun things about is his House of the Departed, his death home out at his mausoleum, which is an Egyptian type with Sphinx out in front. That's at Mount Hope.
Right.
Is really kind of a fascinating circle of Charles Schifferdecker.
So even as he left his image in the community.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to forget him. Yeah.
Right. I think we
And-
might have a couple of other pictures. If we, is there another one that's? There we go.
Okay, yeah, this is Roger's house, and we also have that. We right now are working just making sure that everything's winterized and taken care of. It is across the street, and we got to concentrate our energies on these the four structures we're working on now,
Right.
and they're all brick. That was the logic that we were working behind that. But we'll be turning our attention to that shortly, and it's a fabulous home. Of course, A.H. Rogers is known for two things: Southwest Missouri Railway, which was the urban lobby.
Connection to the community.
That just connected everybody together, which is just unbelievable. And then also was a big time publisher for the Joplin Globe. And then this is we saw the house, and that would be the one up in the top. There's some historic structures there too. We're at Great Murfreesburg, which is a great historic site. Murfreesburg, there's about like 100 and plus properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places.
Right.
We're part of that. We're so pleased that we're part of that, and there's some beautiful homes there besides obviously ours. And but the Zelikin house is up above. Edward Zelikin, also a German immigrant, which is an interesting thing. They became friends and business partners, and they basically bought the block. And built two different distinctive
house
houses.
here, I'll build my house there.
Zelikin selected the Queen Anne, which is totally different than the Romanesque, strong picture of the Schifferdecker house. But yeah, they were great friends, and Mr. Zelikin was quite a bit older than him, but Mr. Zelikin lived longer than Mr. Schifferdecker. And he, when he died in 1919, He was the largest taxpayer in the area. So these two gentlemen, though, came across the pond with not a lot of money, but a lot of optimism and gumption, really made it well in our community. And he also owned a lot of mining land, as well as he was involved in a bank as well, which never hurts.
No, that's right. The money's there to help you do those projects.
Yeah.
Well, as you've been working on these projects, I'm sure you've been getting a lot of feedback, not only from the people who live there in Murfreesboro and look and say, wow, look what's happening down the street. But
well, we are, and it's just fascinating. What I really find is the interesting 2-mile-an-hour cars that are passing by, and they're gawking and
what's
looking.
Happening today?
And that's absolutely fabulous. I mean, this is going to be a project that we'll all hopefully take pride in and enjoy, and it's going to be very open public for everybody. But yeah, everybody's curious, and the only thing is, Judy, this stuff to get where we're going, the degree that we're working at, you just don't rush through this.
You have to have patience.
You have to, and sometimes you got to tear back a little bit to find out what you're up against, and then you got to do some problem solving. And we're not the first one that's ever done that, but I think we're really going to be making a statement in residential preservation.
Now, you mentioned working inside after you finish the outside. So after people drive by and see the outside, say, well, it looks pretty nice, you've got a lot of interior work.
That, and then, of course, then the third route is the landscaping. So, you just got to be patient, like we are, as far as going through this meticulously. But we're going to get there, and it's going to be something that I think we'll all enjoy. And, when you think about, 100 years, 150 years from now, it's all going to be there.
So you're building it for the future. It's not
right, and that's the thing that I noticed getting involved in this business with historic house sites. The major problem is the deferred maintenance. They just put it off. It's the big elephant in the room, but they don't have the money. The thing that's going to tear up, create a lot of dust. It's going to close your site. There's so many issues with that. We're going to put this on good footing so that the next generation and the next generation of directors will just be running the museum, which is cool.
Right.
That's what they should be doing.
So the ultimate goal for our community is down the road having a museum facility with these historic homes that people will learn more about the community as well.
Oh, most definitely, yes. And I mean, of course, we're, let's just be frank, we're learning about very wealthy white men, but nonetheless, these men also were very generous to our community, and they helped shape and put their fingerprints are on our community.
Right.
So, and the other thing is that obviously, since they are wealthy and they built these big homes, they were also very well put together. And even though we've talked about some of the problems they've had, the smaller wooden structures, the small framed houses and those type of things, though they're as important as any because a family lived in them, but they just don't have the sustainability that these larger structures
When
do.
these were built, they were built to say, we're going to be here for a while.
And they think, I think Charles said, you're going to be looking at this at my life and remember me forever, and we will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that art, the craftsmanship that went into those homes is something you don't see today.
Well, the story goes that, and these are things that I'm ferreting out now. I've got about 78 pages of a manual kind of thing of what's going on. And the story goes that he brought in German artisans to do the exterior.
So they brought them over from Germany.
But yes, that's how the story goes. And clearly the masonry work is just is really impeccable, amazing. And then they brought French artisans in to do some of the interior. So whether that happened or not, he clearly had the resources to do that. And were they German and French artisans, maybe from New York or whatever, I don't know. And maybe we'll never know. But that's the fun thing about history, is that sometimes our stories are hand-me-down. And until you define it, you either don't say it, or if you do say it, you say, this is what we know, and maybe tomorrow we'll find out more.
So it's kind of like solving mysteries all the time.
It is. This has been sort of a detective novel, to say the least, yes. But it has really been a fascinating experience.
Right. Well, I know you've worked on a lot of Joplin history throughout the years, and this was kind of a capstone project for our community of things that have
It is. And, we've done some great work commercially. Saving so many buildings along Main Street and other corridors. And it was time for us to do something in the residential vein. And Murfreesboro is a beautiful neighborhood, and we're so pleased to be a part of that. And they have been very patient with us, and
Construction
God
down the
bless
street
them
all the time,
on
right?
that, yeah. And that, but I think in the end, everybody will see that we're moving to a really an interesting, fine time.
Right. And of course, we talked at the beginning of the show about all the historic things coming up. So this really ties into these next, I guess, 6 years or so of history.
Yeah, and boy, our head's just going to be spinning. There's just going to be an event here and there, whatever. And we're really going to go fun on the 150th. And I couldn't do this without the great committee and Patrick Tuttle, the
Convention and Visitors
CVB
Bureau.
man. Yeah, he and I worked together for the 125th anniversary, and so we're back at it again, 150. We looked for anybody to take, and they didn't want it. They said, you guys run it.
the project.
So that's where it is, and but we're very pleased and honored to do that. And so we'll be letting you know about events and coming up and that type of thing. And
Right. So the viewers just kind of stay tuned to the
Right,
local media,
right,
ways to find out what's happening. With
and
things.
if I don't, and I must, I know that you're retiring, and you have done just absolutely extraordinary job. You've
thank you.
opened up us to people and personalities for a longer period of time than we would ever know who they are and get their mannerisms and find out more. And you've just been incredible and extraordinary part of our history. And for since the 80s, and doing 52 shows a year, and it's just an amazing career, and we cannot thank you enough because you've, like I said, to introduce us to people sometimes that would never have a voice, and so it's just extraordinary. You just have been absolutely fabulous, and I don't know who's going to replace you, but they can, as far as I'm concerned. But you have just been a credit to your profession, and these students out here have been absolutely fabulous, and they've learned as well, and it's just been a great, extraordinary experience from since the 1980s. Amazing.
Great. Well, thank you, Brad. I appreciate it, and hopefully, Newsmakers is informing the community, but it's also preserving some of that history for people.
Oh yeah, and in fact, I buzz in there occasionally and grab something, a tape that you interviewed, because that's the only, they've passed away.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you find out about this? And you guys held on to it. Bless you for that. I mean, most people just dispose of history, and you can't do that. These are extraordinary moments, and you never know how important these people are until you look through the arc of their history and their past too.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate you visiting with me today as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. I hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.